Hello, this is Duke Eichbrander, and I'm going to be doing a video tutorial on everything about 9-foot spear for using for warfighting in the SCA. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the weapon itself. So we've got quite a few different ideas of things we can do here with our 9-foot spears. You can see I love fighting spear, so I've got 2 spear already made and I've got another shaft ready to go. Each one of these is actually a little bit different with their pros and cons. The brown shaft is really light. This is going to make about a 2.5 pound spear if it had a head on it, so it's really light. The problem with the lighter spear is that it's going to break a lot easier, and the less weight means that it generates less kinetic energy and therefore force of impact from the weight alone. It's got to come more from your shoulder and your hip turn. But these are personal styles and things. That's the brown spear. I generally don't like the brown spear weight. It's just too thin. I break those way too easy. Then there's my preferred, which is this gray fiberglass shaft. These are all fiberglass shafted spear with the tip on it. This is about a 3.2 pound overall spear. So again, light, but not as light as what this brown shaft would make. Then there's this spear that's made with this orange kind of variegated wood grain style spear fiberglass shaft, and this one's got to be about a 4 pound spear once it's made like it is. So a little heavier and a little bit more tip heavy is where you feel that weight. The heavier they get, the more it's kind of weight is out in front of you. And basically what happens is the heavier spears are going to last longer, they're going to hit a little bit harder, and they're going to cost about the same, but they're going to fatigue the war spear fighter out faster, and they're going to hit with a little slower speed because of the generated inertia that has to be put into them to get them to start moving. Again, these are styles. I like the gray one the best, the 3 pound spear. The tip that I like to use is the Sir Pellinor tip build design, but I add more Flow-Cell foam out the front of it so that it just looks more like a spearhead instead of being kind of short and kind of fat looking. It's got a little bit more elegant look to it, even though it's still padding. Again, that's my personal aesthetic. It just needs to be made so that it's legal for the fighting we do, and that you'll find in handbooks, martial handbooks, and things like that. I'm not going to go into manufacture any more than that. And what I like on the back side is I like to add a wrap of tape that makes this spiral gripping, and wrap it with some hockey handle tape, and then got to have the plastic butt cap on the back. When you make your spear, make sure you make the spear padded end first, the striking part first, and then measure your length to get your 9 foot. You want to make sure that when you're using a spear for war, you're using a 9-foot spear, not an 8.5 foot spear or even a 8 foot 9-inch spear. You want to be as close to 9 inches as you can get. That's the maximum allowed, and you don't want to be over. They won't pass it, but for good reason. But you want to have as much opportunity to hit the guy across from you who's making sure he's got a 9-foot spear. So you want to make sure yours is 9 foot as well, or again as close to as possible, like 8 foot 11.5 inches or something like that. So now I want to talk about armor and fighting with a war spear for melee. You want to have it with your kit for spear fighting. The develop the kit you want so that it's got the protection you feel you need. But the better and better a spear fighter gets, the lighter and lighter his armor has got to be, because the lighter you are, the faster you are, and sometimes that can make the difference between hitting your opponent or getting hit, or avoiding or ducking out of the way. You know, if I have a really heavy helm, it's hard to duck. If my legs are really clanky and bouncy around, it's hard to move fluidly and easily. You know, same thing with body armor. If you're wearing chainmail, you know, you just got to be heavier. If it's aluminum, that's not too bad. But as light as you can go and still be armored and protected adequately and appropriately, and have flexibility and the ability to bend and lunge and step and twist and you know, do all those things that the advanced spear fighters got to do in melee. Gauntlets are probably the biggest thing of importance. These are aluminum, aircraft aluminum gauntlets that I had special made for myself. They're very light, but very flexible. Let me open and close my hands. Nice and easy to change positions, to slide on the spear shaft, to have flexibility in my wrist, to hold with one hand or both hands. And so consider your gauntlets as being the biggest potential detriment of your spear fighting skills. If they're heavy and very, very clunky, they're just going to slow you down. But again, protection first, right? So consider your armor for spear fighting, just like you would with any weapon style. The next thing to talk about is guards and how you grip and where you grip the spear. I'd also like to say that this is basic information for somebody who's starting out with a spear to fight, and there are many additional intermediate and advanced techniques that we don't use, or at least I don't use nearly as much, so I'm not going to get involved in those. But there are additional things as you get better at the basics, like anything, that you're going to be taught or figure out by watching other fighters, and try those as well. Some people are a lot better at certain things than I am, so I just don't use those. But basically, first thing you want to make sure that you're doing is when you hold the spear. So if I'm right-handed, my back hand, it's got to be my dominant hand, and then the left hand is out in front of me. The hand that's back on the end of the shaft, I used to hold it so that 3 fingers were on it, and to get just a little extra range, and the nature of that worked okay, except I started feeling this weird pain in my pinky because it was stopping. That was the stop of the force, and it was putting strain on my pinky, so I quit doing that. But what I recommend is just as far back on the end cap as you can hold comfortably, so that you maximize your range. We're going to take a guard where we're turned away. We're not looking. I don't teach this style. Some people teach this style, right? So now my shoulders are very square to you. You see a big target. I fight turned away spears so that there's less of a target, right? I'm not as wide now as I am now, right? So turned away, very similar to a kind of a fencer's stance. Sometimes the distance of my feet apart will be normal. Sometimes they'll be a little bit wider apart, depends on what I'm trying to do and the room I have to fit up in the front rank or in between 2 sword and shield guys, things of that nature. But my guard is going to be about like this, right? So as you see that, you've got, my legs and knees are bent a little bit. This backhand is, give or take, at about my hip right in here. It's about a fist distance away from my body, that backhand. And then the front hand is crooked in an elbow, right? It's just the elbow is here, and I'm kind of at this kind of 90-degree angle, and kind of support it, just the weight of that spear out in front, support it with that elbow, that arm, that upper arm, that tricep, kind of on my chest, on my side, to kind of help support it. And then as I move, see how the nature of the upper arm isn't really, it's not coming out till I thrust. I might do this to gain different advantages for height or angles, but I'm not holding it here. I like it right nice in here, nice and relaxed, nice and easy, nice and comfortable. Doesn't tire me out. And then when I'm on guard, I want to be on guard in a way to my opponent, and it's hard to show this on a video because we're talking 9-foot weapons against each other, is if I was fighting you over there and you were fighting with a spear or even a sword and shield in the wall, the line of the angle of that spear, right, the angle is going to be generally at a basic condition done in a way so that if I just prescribe a laser beam out the front of that spear point on the line of the spear shaft, it's going to go into a face when it hits. Okay, so I'm here. That's kind of where you want to hold that for a basic guard. Okay, so in here. I also want to practice the same thing. It's 180 degrees opposite with the feet and bent over this way, right? But with the left hand and back as well. So practice and learn dominant hand first, and then practice the other hand as well. Okay. How to parry or block with the spear. And this is specifically how to do a block against another spear. That's the intent of this class. There's other things and other ways to block quite often. A sword coming at you, or a pole arm trying to hack at you, but that's not the intent of this class to teach that. But I will say that the first defense against those is just not to be there. So how to block with a spear another spear. So we go back into our guard like we've just talked about. And so the style that I like to use is, for blocking, I call point on line blocking, and then we shift the spear to the left, to our left, if the opponent's spear is coming in on this side. If it's coming in around us on this side, we just push out. So imagine the viewer is thrusting at this target right here. So the spear is coming at me, that tip is coming at me. So the way I'm going to block that is, and what I mean by the point on line is that I'm not doing this kind of stuff. I'm not windshield wipering the tip. I want to keep my point on line, or on target, if you will, so that I can rotate. So see how I'm rotating, kind of tucking in to block that away from me. So I only want to block it enough so that it kind of goes by me this much. It doesn't have to go by me a foot or something, just an inch or 3, right? So that's that block. You see how the point is still available to be able to thrust. Okay? If I do this, I can thrust, but I have to come all the way back to position before I can thrust. If it's coming on the other side, so over here, I just push it out, push my hands out, and knock that spear shaft a little bit to the side so it goes by me here. So basic blocking looks just like this. Here or here. Here, 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 here. That's it. It's that easy. Of course, speed and range and timing and awareness and all that stuff, and practice to do that. Now I'm going to start talking about using the spear offensively, and that's of course the thrust. We have to ensure that we understand the range to the target, and then we have to understand and practice hitting targets from range and hitting with the proper power. If it's a face thrust, it's of course light. If it's a body thrust, then it's got to be more stout. The basic idea behind fundamental thrust with a spear has got to be the backhand generates the forward momentum and the forward motion to the spear, right? And then the front hand is more of a guide and creates a sleeve where I have a loose grip. It's fully encapsulating around the fiberglass shaft, but it's loose. It's like a sleeve so that I can piston pump that spear and move the head wherever I want it to go, okay? So to practice range, we want to put the spear on the target. And the first thrust technique is we're going to thrust and slide with our hand, and our finish has got to be looking just like I have here. So I'm in guard, thrust out, boom. So my hands stay on the shaft. We can back up a little bit, and then we can lunge with the front foot. Same exact thrust, but that lunge gives us a little bit extra range, okay? That's the first fundamental thrust routines. The next one is going to be where we drop the top hand, and that allows us to extend forward farther, because now it's not defined by the length of our front hand, so we can rotate our body and get extra range. So we check range. All right, so I'm holding it. All right, so now I can't, see how I can't grab the spear shaft with my front hand because I rotated my shoulders past that point where I have to let go. So the way we do that thrust is we continue to have the hand, the front hand on that shaft until we have to let go so that we can hit, finish hitting and gain that extra range, right? So here I wouldn't hit it, but I now drop that hand as I finish rotating. See? Just like that. And then of course, if we want even more range, we thrust, we lunge, and then we drop that front hand and rotate our body forward even more. And pull it back. Like that. Okay? This gets harder, and with the lunge it's even more harder. And you gotta practice this a lot because you have to have the control with the power to the target, and then that formalizes with the range too, so that you're not hitting too light or too hard or not at all. So those are the 2 times 2 or 4 primary methods of thrusting with a spear. There are advanced methods as well. There's also different targets that you use, right? There's the face, there's a face plate but a little to the side, to both sides. There's the hip target, belly target, the chest targets, upper leg targets, right? And there's a lot of different thoughts and ideas that spearmen have on what are the easiest targets to hit. Generally, for me, it's the face. It's got to be center mass. Anything on the legs gets pretty hard because even if you hit, it wants to slide off. But that back leg, if you have an opponent, if they're more rooted in that back leg, this one's easier to land. This one, as it comes in, all they have to do is that. This one's harder, this back one's harder to move. Face, center mass, front hip, whatever their front hip is, etc., etc. So practice all this, guys. You got to do it. Okay, I'm going to do my best to try to show voids when spear fighting. So we're going to pretend that I have a spear in my hands here in a minute, and you can see my spear I've set up so that it kind of has got to be looking like it's coming at me, so that it gives the viewer here a little bit more of an idea what I'm really trying to show here in virtual space. The important thing about these voids is that whether they're for a body void or a head void, and when I say void, I mean somebody's trying to hit you in a target and you move that target out of the way so that it misses. That's a void. You voided the attack. So I'm going to show a couple here right now. We want to remember too that when we do voids, the thing about voids, correct voids, is that we don't ever really want to lose our balance. Because even if you make a good void, meaning that you successfully voided an attack, but you became off balance, that means that you're easier to get hit by somebody else or that same guy who kind of double pumps because you've overbalanced or thrown yourself, out of balance so significantly. So we don't want to do that. Okay. So first I'm going to show front view. Front view. So this is up for a face thrust, right? And there's two versions. There's ones where we kind of void left and right, and then there's got to be ones a little later where we void by moving generally forward or most often back, just to get out of range as we see something coming at us. But so for a face thrust or a body thrust coming at us, right, we can shift our center to our left while we drop our head over to the right, which makes that go past our head that way, okay? Or we can shift our center to the right and have it go by to the right of us, okay? So it's here or here, okay? All right? And so for a body, right, that can work pretty good in here too. Doesn't work so good on this side. And again, I'm just showing fundamental voids that you guys can start trying to understand and figure out based on this RUM class. The nature of that void from a side view is where I'm here and it's coming at, and let's say we're going to void by pushing our center to the left and our head to the right. It looks like that. Looks like that. Okay? Or it looks like that. Right? So as my balance point, my center of gravity shifts to the right, I balance by shifting my upper body to the left and thereby creating balance. I'm nicely balanced. I can do whatever I want, right? Because I haven't thrown myself too ghastly hard that way or too far this way. I generally try not to move my feet when I'm doing those voids. You could, do the voids with your feet too. It's a little bit more advanced. It's a little harder to remain balanced when you do that. And it removes your rock solid fundamental ground that you're owning to allow you to thrust just after a void, right? Because that's the idea. Void, thrust, right? Or often it can be you've thrust, and whether you've got that target or not, here comes this thing. So now we're going to do just a drop that way or a drop that way. See it? Okay. Another version is dropping straight down like that. Okay. My knees aren't as young as they used to be, so I don't do that one as much. But it basically, again, it looks like we're doing the knees drop, and then we kind of tuck down too. Okay. So those are some voids that you want to practice. So this is another discussion on voids while we're spear fighting. These are going to be about changing your range of your target that they're trying to hit, so that the range changes and thereby makes the target not reachable. Okay, so this is the spear coming at me, and this could be generally the face. This is going to be a face thrust, right? So we're going to pretend that would hit me if I didn't move, right? Okay, but then, so I shift my core, my center, forward as I rotate my abdomen back. So see how that misses the face? Okay? Just like that. Okay. Use that one all the time. Most good spear fighters use that one. That's a really important one to have in the Rolodex. Okay. The next one is we just step back a little bit with our feet, obviously, right? So you see it coming, whatever that target is, you step back with the back foot first, and then the front foot follows, going backwards, and now it's nowhere near range, right? So we're here, we just step back. Don't even have to step back that much. Right? The next one would be, especially if you're in a dire situation where you're going to get hit easy because you've done a lunge or something and you're really way forward. As you move back, you do a passing step back. So now, instead of the back foot starting the movement and the front foot just trailing afterwards, we move our front foot by doing a passing step to the back. So we're here, and it's that. See how far and easy and quickly I came back and out of that range, right? See that? Here. Okay. Now, obviously with voids, you're also doing what you can if you have your spear shaft in its guard position. First and foremost, we want to block and parry with our spear shaft so that we don't have to do these voids. But sometimes we have to do them to, save us. Sometimes we have to do it a little bit while we're trying to make a block too. And as we get better and better, we're going to do those voids and immediately be attacking directly afterwards, right? So if I'm here and I step back, I cannot pump right forward, right? Or even come forward with my now front foot, which is my right foot. Some more intermediate and advanced stuff there to share a little bit, but those are the range changers. There is another one that works. This one is one of those where it's a little bit more dangerous because we're going to actually move our head forward and to the right or left. So thereby changing the range, making it shorter, but also moving it offline so that it goes by us, okay? So instead of like the last ones where we're just doing this or this, right, effectively, we're actually going to drive ourselves forward and duck like that, right? So it's now like that. I generally don't duck to this side, to my left. My body doesn't want to work that way. Where I hinge for this is in my gut and on my hips this way, right? Following my shoulders, both my shoulders. So it's in here. Okay, so now I want to talk for this spear class about targets to practice on, and then I'll just show some random thrusting so you can kind of follow along. The thing you need to have to do this spear practice adequately for learning how to use the spear is you have to have something to hit. You can have a Pell like I have that you see in my videos. You can use a fence post, a brick wall. You can use a ball on a string. You can use a telephone pole. You know, there's all kinds of different garbage can. I mean, it doesn't matter, but you have to have something you're hitting so that you can evaluate if you've hit it, how you hit it, how hard you hit it, etc., etc. Okay, so make sure you have something that you're striking at, thrusting at when you're doing your practice. When you do the practice, if you're new, start half speed. You know, this is important for any weapons form. And then go to, you know, 3/4 speed, full speed, so that you don't, you know, damage your elbows or hurt yourself or the target you're hitting. Learn good, proper technique, slower first, and then slowly speed it up so that your form is perfect. You want to focus for perfect form. So now I'm going to show just a little bit of thrusting to give you a little bit more of an idea just from nature of what I like to do. So, you know, so I'm here, bang, here, lunge, one-handedness, hit that, body nice and hard, head, here, here, turn, left hand, and here, come out here, change, there, pull it back, here, extend, right. Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of an idea, but. And to finish this tutorial, some final thoughts. First of all, this class, this series of videos has been meant to be a primer for the new student of fighting spear or the student of spear fighting who hasn't done a lot of spear fighting. Showing a lot of the fundamentals. Some of the things are a little bit more advanced that I show. But it's meant to be a primer to, you know, really get you kind of into it and interested in fighting spear. Remember that spear is probably one of the easiest forms, weapons forms, to authorize in, and very likely one of the hardest weapons forms to actually get really, really good in. So it kind of runs that full gamut of easy to start, super, super difficult, you know, in here. It's also an extremely aerobic style of fighting form. So if you don't have a lot of wind, you're immediately gotta be like, I don't want to fight spear. It's too tiring. So it's actually good for aerobics, and certainly, you know, in the continued pandemic we have, it's also, I like to grab a spear and do 50 or 100 spear thrusts every once in a while, just to, you know, work the core, because it really does work the core on that twisting and that body turning, and it really does work the cardio. So yay for that too, right? But if you have any questions or thoughts, please present them as questions in the comments. You can also IM me directly. More than happy to help. I'm sure that I'll be doing more videos as well for some more of the advanced techniques, and maybe even to share a little bit better specific things with specific questions or advanced things that I choose to do to help advance your lessons in spear. You got to practice, like anything. You got to practice, 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 practice. And you know, just like anything, if you don't have somebody who's an opponent, the blocking and the voiding can become really hard to learn too. And of course, in the pandemic right now, that's almost impossible. So I tried my best to show it in a way that would at least give you an idea on how to practice some of those things, you know, by yourself, maybe in front of your phone or a mirror even too is always really super helpful. And finally, I just wanted to say that this class has been, like I said, about fundamental spear fighting, and it's really important to fight spear versus spear when you eventually can do that, when we all get back together. Before you go out and start trying to run around in a melee, you're gonna get run over, you're gonna get trampled, you're gonna get stepped on, You're going to get bumped around in a static battle in ways that if you're not really used to how to use a spear, those things are all going to just drive you nuts. And so first learn how to use that spear against another spear, especially. And then like 5-on-5s where you're the spear, or maybe there's 2 spears and one against you, etc. And then we get into melee. And the Nature of War spear takes all those lessons that this tutorial has in it, adds a whole bunch more, gives you a necessity to understand the vision of the battlefield and the breadth of battle and all those things too. So, those are all other lessons. And I may do another video or 5 for War Spear and some of those things. But for right now, this is the intent of the class, is a fundamental 9-foot spear. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.